Welcome, Leo, to your Mercury Retrograde Deep Dive Special on February the 26th through to March the 20th, 22 days. Mercury, the communicator, but also the planet of precision, inverts in a retrograde in the water sign of Pisces. Now, Mercury in Pisces is already detrimented, so this is a particularly tender retrograde. In fact, all the Mercury retrogrades this year are going to be in water signs. And what water can do, and particularly the sign of Pisces, is just bring a more opaque quality to the clarity that Mercury likes. And for you, and I'm going to share your unique chart wheel, Mercury is in your eighth house. The eighth house can be brilliant for thinking or talking about shared resources, investment, entrepreneurship, but also in a more spiritual and psychological way. The eighth house is about what's changing and shifting. And Mercury here in a retrograde could see you thinking very, very deeply over these next 3 weeks about some very tender subjects. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to the channel, please do so now and help it to continue to thrive. I'm going to share your unique event chart, which does show a couple of other very influential aspects, but also I'm going to share the upcoming influences, and there are some very good ones. Please stay with me. I'll give you the opportunity to get your free Survive and Thrive Mercury Retrograde Guide. So on the screen, your event chart, and there's Mercury in that eighth house. Now, because the sign of Pisces is very watery and very sensitive, you may actually be thinking a lot about where you're most invested, not just in a financial context, but around your closest relationships. But the eighth house can be about things like insurances, taxation, financial planning, pensions. And if you're more entrepreneurial and you have had it on your mind that you want to do something more dynamic, that can be something you consider very carefully over the next 3 weeks too. But of course, Mercury retrogrades can create the potential for cross wires, misunderstandings. So if you are doing any documentation around those financial affairs, it will be critical that you're very precise in your approach. But the eighth house can be about where we're most invested in an emotional or psychological or even romantic way. And ironically, Venus, the planet very much to do with romance, but also money, is very close to Mercury as this retrograde begins. But they come together in an exact conjunction on the 28th, which can bring some good news for you. If you've been waiting for a payout on a claim, there may be some news on an inheritance or something to do with an estate, but also from a joint viewpoint, if you had a conversation about a business prospect, I feel the balance between the investment of intent, Venus, and the clarity that can come from Mercury thinking carefully could be very positive. But what we do have in this chart is a square between Mars in your sector of relating and Uranus in the most visible part of your chart to do with your work. So if you were thinking about a partnership at the moment, one of the things I would say through the Mercury retrograde period, and even right up until when Mercury emerges from its post-retrograde shadow on April the 9th, is don't rush, because that square between Mars and Uranus can create some urgency, but it can also create some frustration if things aren't evolving quite as quickly as one would like. But the moon is at home in Cancer, so that's a very lovely place for the moon to be, but it's really challenged by Saturn. So if you were talking about a financial matter with Saturn and the dreamy Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, in the ninth house of contracts, I think listen to your hunches and don't go into anything without doing that due diligence and research. It's really critical that you don't rush things. And there could be that sense of urgency that just comes from that square between Mars and Uranus. So that's the financial side of it, anything to do with contracts. But what about the romantic side of things? Because the eighth house can be where things can get more intimate in a relationship. But if there is some kind of inhibition in the flow of the language, if your love language simply doesn't chime with the other person, that could be something that becomes more apparent. But just to reassure you, on the 7th, we have a Mercury cazimi. That's when the Sun and Mercury are exactly conjunct. The Sun radiates its energy into Mercury and provides amplification for Mercury's qualities. So, despite the retrograde, if you get the nice balance between the more sensory, psychological, even psychic energies of Mercury in Pisces and the thrust of the Sun, that can be to your advantage. Also, Jupiter, the planet of opportunities, forges a perfect trine to Mercury on the 9th. Again, a great opportunity to think about where you may evolve something, but particularly if you're really listening to your instincts. However, we do have on the 15th Mars, which by that time is in Pisces, merges with Mercury. And if something comes up which is rather frustrating, you could find yourself wanting to cut through the kind of mistiness that you can get with Pisces energy and really tell it as it is. And you could be crunchingly honest, and that could be a good thing. But if something is requiring a degree of just nurturing along very Piscean energy, it could just spoil the moment. So the big picture for you in terms of finance, I feel there are opportunities, but if you are considering something that's new, vital to really get the information checked. And because of the ninth house energy of Saturn, you may even talk to someone who's a professional, whether it's an accountant, business advisor, a life coach, or even a counselor if it's a more romantic dimension that you're thinking of merging your resources with someone. So, trying to find as much clarity by getting outside perspectives would be a very smart thing to do. Now, because of the very positive aspects that are emerging, there could be good financial news for you over the next 3 weeks, but equally, there could be a delay. And obviously, that is what happens with Mercury retrograde. Unfortunately, all you can do is marshal the circumstances the best you can. And the thing that could just go against you is if you do get rather impatient that things aren't going quite as quickly as you would like. So, a degree of guile and subtlety is going to be important, whether it's around very close alliances, your long-term finances, a business situation that you're interested in. What about your physical energy? Well, I think if you're open to evolving, knowing that all of us, the world is changing at such pace, if all of us can just accept that we don't have an option really to stay exactly as we are. We do need to evolve with things. If you can go with it, I think your energy will hold up rather better. So, to understand what March holds for you in terms of your deep dive, Leo, please click on the link on screen. But if you want to download your Survive and Thrive guide, please click on the other screen for that. Please take advantage of my unique horoscope reports offer. You can order your 12-month forecast, but also your life roadmap report, totally unique to you. If you apply Astro 26 at the checkout, you'll get 50% off. If you'd like to know more about your karmic soul journey through draconic astrology, you can order the same package, but apply at the checkout Draco 26. Thank you.